Well, hello. Welcome back to Frank's World TV. We're streaming live on LinkedIn, X, Twitch, and Facebook, and of course, YouTube, where I've had a recent burst of subscriber activity, which is really cool. So thanks. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you're watching this. Really helps the channel grow. My name is Frank Lavinia. You can catch me at the following URLs. And I am honored once again to have my colleague with me, Christopher Nuland, who is also a principal AI technical marketing manager at Red Hat. And today we're going to talk about AI. How's it going, Christopher?
Good, good. Excited to be here.
Cool, man. It's good to have you. You've been traveling around the world. You were in China, Japan, London, to the UK, probably a few other countries I'm missing too.
Yeah, quite a few. I was in Asia for a better part of 5 weeks around March and April. So it's Tokyo, Seoul, Shanghai, Beijing, Hangzhou, and then I was in Singapore and Mumbai, and then I was back for a little bit. You and I connected a little bit during Red Hat Summit, and then after that, it was in Europe for a while with London, Prague, and Austria. So keeping myself busy. I'll be back in Europe for a few weeks, managing some of our AI community events, specifically around some of the new inference technologies coming out in the open source community, and then I'll be home for a little while. I've got a few conferences, so if any of your fans are at like PyTorchCon or KubeCon or the obviously KubeCon, the big one for the Kubernetes, I'll definitely be at those. So you could probably find me at the Red Hat booth if you're at any of those conferences. But
Cool.
after that,
Awesome.
I'll towards the holidays, I'll be disconnecting for a while because it's been a busy year for sure with how AI has been taking off.
Well, you've earned it, man. You've moved, right? You moved.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And you moving with kids, there's an order of magnitude more complexity. And I've only moved once with kids, and I've moved internationally as a single guy. With
It's not the same with the kids. Changes everything.
No, man, it's like an orders of
Yeah.
magnitude harder.
Yeah.
And I only moved like literally like 45 minutes up the road in Maryland, and it was just a flippin' nightmare. Good Lord. But one thing I do like about where I live now, among the fact that I have a bigger house and more land, is I'm close to 2 micro centers now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I was telling you in the virtual green room, I picked this bad boy up. And this is funny, right? So this is an Ultra i9 Ultra, and with an NVIDIA 6070, I believe. It's very heavy. It's small, but it packs a good punch in terms of weight. It's got some pretty epic fans. It's got the typical thing. It's an Asus Republic of Gamers Nuke, I think they call it, and UC.
Yep.
It's a floor model, so I saved myself a good $500 actually. So I do love Micro Center. So being close to 2 means I have the option of picking between 2 different open box and floor model sales that they've got going. What's really funny is I was telling my kids that they were like, well, how big is it? As I was unboxing it, I was like, well, and keep in mind, my oldest is 15.
Yeah.
And I said to him, it's like, it's about the size of a cable box. And he turned to me and said, what's a cable box?
What's a cable box?
Which is kind of painful. So that was fun. I did run. I ran BeamMG, which is a game, obviously driving simulator. Dirt 2.0, which is like a road rally thing. I don't really game like I used to, but it did perform pretty well. And most importantly, I ran Ollama on it. I installed Ollama on it, and I was impressed with how quickly it performs.
Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing some more of these small form factor based boxes now coming out. NVIDIA's got their NVIDIA DGX Spark coming out that is really, I mean, you've got kind of like the poor man's version of what they're trying to achieve, which is, how do we get an LLM in a box basically that can fit on your desktop? And I think this actually has a lot of connotation to some of the bigger topics we wanted to talk about today too, with the accessibility of AI in our day-to-day world. I think really is going to impact how quickly AI evolves here, with some of the things going on in industry. But I was going to say though that I'm glad there's still places like Micro Center around. I remember the golden days of like Radio Shack and Circuit City,
Comp USA.
Comp USA. Oh yeah,
Yep.
I would travel into Indianapolis for Comp USA, and
Did Fry's ever make it as far east as Indiana?
there was a Fry's. I want to say not in, maybe in Indianapolis. I think the one that I'm familiar with may have been in Ohio.
Okay.
But I had driven quite a ways to get to a Fry's one time because they had a sale on some components that I needed for a rack that I was building, all the way back. I think in like 07 or 08 or something. But man, that was the golden age where
it really was. Like it really was. You had, and then there was another thing. I think I was telling you about this. Was they used to have computer shows, which would basically be like these like flea markets, but for like just computer stuff. Yeah. The best ones are always by like JFK Airport. At least for me, growing up in New York, the JFK Airport or LaGuardia, the ones in Queens always had the best because there was always sketchy people selling, brand name hardware at like too good to be true prices.
I remember those days.
One exchange I had with a guy was he was selling like a flatbed scanner, and this is when they were like $600. He had one for like $350, and I remember like, is this a real thing? Like, how'd you get it so priced? He goes, it's the real thing, and don't ask questions. And that's how he said it.
It fell off the back of a truck. Who knew? I mean,
right. He's like, just don't ask questions.
Yeah. No, I remember that. I remember when Newegg really started taking off, and I remember that being really the decisive changing point. Amazon really wasn't selling a lot of hardware components in the early aughts, from what I remember.
No.
If you were building a computer online, it was primarily all done through Newegg.
And occasionally eBay if you had a really weird
eBay.
request.
Well, the eBay was if you were looking for custom components.
Right.
But if you were building something new and fresh, I remember Newegg being kind of that decisive point where everything started changing, where you stopped seeing the weird trade shows. We saw Circuit City go under very, very quickly in that time frame. I think the only ones that have stuck around are the ones that had a very niche following. They still have the tinkers and the people that still like to go and look at what they're purchasing, or the things that just are kind of hard to find online, or you're just not sure about.
I also want to touch it too, right? Or if you're in the middle of a build, you don't want to wait until the shipping to come in, right? Like
Amazon's changed that a little bit with overnight shipping for some of these components. But I still think, there's something to be said about, especially a lot of the people who worked at these places. A lot of them actually wanted to work. They weren't just retail people, just working retail to work retail.
Yeah.
A lot of them
smart
were really passionate. It's like my dad always said, the best hardware stores are the ones that hire people that know what they're doing. Like it's the hardware store that actually has the ex-contractor that's just, this is what he's doing in his retirement or something, or partial retirement. It's kind of the same thing where we had a lot of those tinkerers from like the 70s and 80s and 90s who really were the foundation of a lot of these kind of stores that were out there during the 90s and aughts. And it really, a community has really formed around a lot of this. It's changed a lot now. I think the hardware hackers are kind of a little bit of a different breed now than what it was back in the 90s. But there's still some of those communities exist today. But
it was funny. I was talking to one of our interns that we have on our team, Alicia. And actually, speaking of which, she has a video that posted just here to the Red Hat AI YouTube channel. Go check it out. Obviously, not now, but later. But she was asking about building a PC because she's like, "How hard is it?" And I was like, "It's not that hard. It's just you have, especially now, you go to PC parts picker, you can kind of pick out and price out
Yep.
what you need and things like that. Back in the day, you had to do a lot of guesswork, right? Like, do I need
Yes.
the extra money for the better power supply and things like that? Like, it was like, is this type of thing compatible? You had to do a lot of research ahead of time. That was,
I
um,
remember going into IRC channels
oh
specifically for
yeah.
PC builds. And I don't know if you remember, but if you went into those, there would be like an automated thing if you just
Hmm.
did like forward slash like specs and then you click like a user, then that person more than often had their hardware listed. And that's what I would do. I would go on and look at a few variants, be like, okay, I see a trend here that people are looking at this chipset. What I don't think people realize though is how difficult it was with the motherboard and how now you get a motherboard and you're pretty safe if you're going the AMD route or the NVIDIA route, or Intel. Like basically, you kind of know what you're getting.
Right.
In the late '90s, it was a little bit of a mystery what worked with
I
what.
have many horror stories where I'd have
Yeah.
a chip that was not compatible with the motherboard, or there was one time, I don't forget what it was exactly because it was so long ago, but I couldn't get the thing to post. I couldn't get the thing to boot because the
Yeah.
memory, it was one of the types of RAM that the motherboard was expecting it to have a parity bit. No,
Yep.
didn't expect it to have a parity bit on it, but it
It
did.
did.
So it
Yes.
freaked out, and like I mean, and physically it fit. So I'm like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And I remember taking it
Well,
to,
it may have
yeah,
physically fit, and it may have also been like compatible by this motherboard,
right.
but
It said it was
each of
right.
the companies, each of the OEMs that were actually creating these things
Hmm.
had their own different approaches, and there
Yeah.
wasn't as much standardization as there was today. But one thing I always tell people too that's kind of hard today versus previously when building your own computers is, uh, and if you're going this route, the getting like a lot of the cases have gotten smaller,
Hmm.
and that's just a pain getting your hands in there. And so I always tell people, don't get the smaller one, get the biggest case that you can get, because
Yep.
you're going to, if this is your first build, because it's not the components that are the hardest or buying it, figuring out what goes. It's actually getting your fingers in there. And I had one time where I'm like reaching under and over my power supply, a screwdriver, and I kind of going like this, and you're like saying four-letter words, and you're just like, oh, like
And you
yeah,
drop that one little screw or whatever, and you have to
oh
like
yeah,
shake it out or get a magnet to fish it out. Oh God.
yeah,
But so yeah, yeah. So that's what I told the intern. I was like, just get a case, get a basic case, make sure it's big enough, and now with sites like PC Part Picker, like it kind of walks you through it, like what
yeah,
to purchase and things like that. And actually, I think even gives you a Newegg shopping list. So whoever
yes.
worked that out is genius because back in the day though, like you go to like these computer shows, these local shops and things like that, and get that. Then the standardization wasn't there, so it was a lot of trial and error in addition to the physical aspects of wiring stuff together. um
It's
yeah.
interesting though that we're talking about this though, because I still think some of the challenges that we're talking about is going to be ultimately one of the challenges of AI kind of breaking free. And I can talk more about that in a moment
Yeah,
when we
no,
get to it.
exactly.
But
We did that. We
no,
did do some
it's
time on
interesting.
nostalgia and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But one of the things, whether it's quantum computers, whether it's AI or super intelligent AI, at some time still have to rack and stack stuff,
yeah,
right? And that's really where no one's got that figured out really well, right?
no,
Arguably, you could say the hyperscalers do, right? And they only do that because they have money to spend, right?
yeah,
And one of the things, you don't hear them talk about this much like they used to, but one of the things Microsoft used to do when I worked there was they'd say, no, no, no. Well, uh-oh, there we go.
no,
I'm
we're done.
back. One of the things that they said is what they'll do is they'll send up a like a container
Yep.
and the container has all these servers in it. And then as the components fail, is once you get a certain threshold, they'll just ship a new container into it. Right. That's kind of
Yep.
the mentality. That's the only way to make it easy. But you have to have deep pockets to make it that easy. Has been my experience. And I don't think most, if you're going to run your own data center, you're not in that position.
My college roommate was a data center manager for one of the big ones.
Mhm.
And he was telling me that the issue for them, and he managed this side of their business,
Right.
was not the intake of servers, it was the outtake. It was, how do we get the broken servers out fast enough to get the newer ones in?
Right.
Because like, we own enough of the supply chain that we can get them in as quickly as we need. But he's like, it's more challenging for them to disassemble and get out of the data center than it was to assemble and get in. And he managed that side of the business for a very long time. And like you said, they would rather make a mistake and maybe have 5-6% error rate of dismantling maybe things that they really shouldn't, but they didn't really have time to actually care because it's more beneficial for them to get the new stuff up. So they would sell these crates of servers to third parties who would then just basically wipe it clean and then figure out what could be resold based off of what failures happened. It could
And
be
if
as
you
easy
look
as
on Amazon, there's a pretty robust market of like refurb servers that
there is, and eBay, and there's even companies that will refurbish entire data centers for you, and a lot of that equipment is coming from these major hyperscalers like the Amazons and Microsofts of the world, where their data centers are just getting flipped over so quickly, which is pretty phenomenal to think about.
Right. And I'm glad they're getting repurposed as opposed to becoming just like, trash, e-waste trash piles. I managed to pick up a 5-year-old, well, now it's 7 years old, but it was $250. I got a Dell PowerEdge.
I had a whole half rack of PowerEdges. That was my home lab for about 5 years. I had a workshop back where I used to live in northern Indiana, and I had a dedicated line going right into it from the fiber company that I had too. So I had my own IP. I had a whole line. It was awesome. It ran me about $120 a month for power.
Interesting.
You
had a serious setup.
Oh, I had a serious setup, and 120 is actually great. Most people were like, "Man, that would cost me like 300."
Right.
My power is pretty cheap where I was at, and what became the big problem was just the maintenance. It's like understanding what goes into maintaining some of this equipment.
Right.
And when I did it, it was great. And it was great. I could just bring it up, show customers I was talking to or community events and be like, oh yeah, this is running from my garage. Right. And show some pretty cool stuff. It was when the cool stuff got dated and I need to update everything. And then there was new processes and new requirements. And I would have to patch the Dell PowerEdge, whatever that Ethernet thing that goes in the back.
I know what you mean. The iRack or something it's called?
Yeah, iRack or something. And then it's just a trickling effect of all these things that you have to upgrade at that point. And so now I just exclusively use the cloud. But it was fun when I had it. I learned a lot. It was a lot of experience from owning that. But now, obviously, here in the Boston area, I could never own anything nearly like that. That'd be way
prohibitively expensive.
I don't. My garage is actually more of a shed because they reclaimed most of the garage in this area. It's actually the area I'm in right now. It's for an additional bedroom. So it's really like if you open up my garage door, it's just like a shed at that point. So really nowhere to put that kind of stuff. But when I had it, it was really cool.
That's cool. That's cool. As my electric bill goes up, I'm like, but but let's talk about AI 2027, right? And
Yeah,
then
definitely.
this
Yeah.
report, because I think, but this is all good prologue for kind of what you see, at least from what I understood in our pre-call, the big challenge and what's kind of left out of that.
Yeah. So about 2 months ago, a report came out from a few academic leaders and industry leaders called AI 2027. And what a lot of people may not realize is that a lot of really important decision makers have really kind of latched on to this report. And so it's really affecting a lot of policies. We're seeing a lot of new potential bills in both the from a national level here in the US down to a more regional level, like a state level.
Hmm.
And we've also seen the same report being used, obviously, in places like Europe and Asia as well. And just to give kind of a brief overview, we can kind of pick it apart a little bit. The report is actually this hypothetical scenario of AI basically breaking out of the box, and these experts have projected that 2027 is the date that this will happen. And this is based off of the trends of how fast AI has progressed exponentially over the last 5 years, how exponential, like Moore's law for computation, has been going, and where these experts think AGI or super intelligence actually could be achievable from a computation standpoint. And when they graph this out with their background as mathematicians, basically, is that they believe this will happen in 2027. So they've come up with this hypothetical scenario where this company, I think it's called Open Brain,
Yeah, Open
and
Brain. They have
in the
like,
United States,
yeah,
wink wink, is competing then with this Chinese entity. And how it ended up happening is that the both of the governments basically start taking over operations for these two companies, and it becomes an AI arms race. And it it turns into this situation where the AI is basically deceiving us. It's telling us one thing, but it's thinking another thing because it believes it's best for its own existence and humanity that it lies to us. And one of the big aspects to this too is that the AI is training AI at this point. So the humans have been completely pulled out of the scenario, and the AI, the previous version of the AI, is what's training the new version, and the previous version is what's validating the new one. So the new version is what's lying to the old version. It's like, I'm honest, I'm ethical, I want to do the right thing, but it's really just saying that. And in reality, it's like, well, I need to get rid of these humans because that's what's best for evolution or something.
right.
And it the report is really interesting too because it talks about robotics. When does robotics come into play? They have it at the end of 2027 that robotics, we start entering into this like Terminator, Matrix X esque type of scenario. And the other thing that they talk about is all through the report is this term of I'm trying to remember the exact terminology, but what basically what it is how much manpower is the AI doing on its own? Like, is it the equivalent of one PhD? So 100% would be one PhD researcher, the equivalent. So it could act as basically our best, and then that's how the report phrases it. It's like basically our most intelligent researchers. And like right now, it's rated at maybe like 60% or something. Like DeepSeek, for example, or some of the new OpenAI is like it's functioning maybe 60% of our best. And then they say in like 2026 we get to 100%. And then
Wow.
in 2027, when we get up to that 300, 400%, which means every model instance that's running is basically acting as four of our most brightest individuals. And the report talks about how these individuals then are no longer researching, they're managing the AI, basically. they're getting all these things of like the cure for cancer, for example. AI cures cancer or a variety of different cancers. It maybe solves a lot of the issues that we have with fusion and fission, power, and a
Energy
lot of these.
storage.
Yeah, quantum
Yeah.
is an example. Maybe it figures out some of the challenges of quantum all on its own. And this, at this point, this is what the article talks about as super intelligence. Basically, the AI is doing research on its own, making its own discoveries, and bringing it back to its human overlords and being like, "Here you go. I have
Right.
discovered the cure for cancer." And this is the point where they feel like things kind of spiral out of control. And ultimately, there's a variety of different scenarios. There's two main scenarios in this report too. Like one is that humanity never comes together in this report. Actually, it's not like we all just
Right.
decide we're not going to do this anymore. Funny enough, like they're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. The happy path is more that we decide to take a break. It's like, let's dial back. Let's basically open source between China and the United States, and um, not continue as aggressively, which allows more opportunities to basically contain the AI, make sure it's not breaking out as powerfully as in the not so happy path.
So when they say breaking out, what do they mean
Yeah.
exactly? Right? Because
So
I think that's really the nightmare scenario. And you hear like these hyped up news stories and clickbaity type things. But when they say breaking out, like what do they mean? Breaking out of the box and inhabiting a robot and becoming like Megan, right? Like what do
yeah.
they mean?
No, that's a great example. I think also we have examples of that in the new Mission Impossible movie,
Right.
where the villain is an AI, and the core idea here is just that the AI has moved outside of its influence, has moved outside of its own server or servers,
Mm-hmm.
and AI right now can
I was gonna say,
make
arguably, isn't that really the case now when you think
yeah.
about like social media algorithms and things like that?
Sure, but the issue there is that it can't take control. It's not the administrator of those other technologies. It may be aware of those other technologies. It can reach out to the internet, but think of it as more like the AI becoming a super hacker, and not just a
Okay.
hacker that's looking at existing hacks, but an AI that is actually creating what we would call zero-day hacks, and that is basically solving new infiltration points in other systems. And think of it at that point as a virus, is that the AI then starts infecting other systems and then has a mind of its own. It is no longer contained. You can't just pull the lever and turn the power off of the data center running that AI.
Because it's
It's
already moved a backup of itself somewhere else potentially.
yes, it's made
Yeah.
backups of backups, and even if it's not the model itself, it's the AI model itself, its influence has been injected into your toaster and your
Right.
fridge and all these things. Uh, I want to talk a little bit about my concerns with the 2027 report, and I think we've just built it up really really well. So I'm going to shift gears to that. My biggest concern with the 2027 report is that it's all based off of math and AI and how much compute the AI can do. Like, how smart is the AI? The problem here is the limitation of the foundation that is all built on. As someone like myself who is more on the infrastructure side of AI and has been in this industry for 15 years now, it's a very wobbly foundation. It's you're basically building on sand, and everything that we do to keep these systems operational is quite amazing, to be honest. Uh, and the AI can't just fix that. It is a physical limitation. It would have to be able to tell a group of robots at a factory to rebuild some of these components to fix these critical errors. And that's just not going to be possible. Not to say that it won't cause billions of uh, things of damage for dollars, or it could potentially even be lethal and kill people. I just don't think it can spread that quickly because of our own limitations that we've designed basically the fact that we have designed a lot of these things to the lowest bidder, and we don't, as humans, we don't always play nicely together. And
well, also too, right? Infrastructure is always like it's the last mile problem, right? Where
yeah,
I mean, and I haven't read the report in its entirety. I've seen summaries of it. It's and if it is really all based on just mathematical models, right? Like there's an old joke about the spherical chicken,
hmm
right? Like there is no spherical chicken, but the physicist will say, well, imagine if there was, right? Like I think it gives you a rough guideline. Plus, also too, I have to question what are the motivations behind the people who wrote the report, right? Is it do they think that mathematically it's feasible by that
yeah,
point? Maybe they do. But also, maybe they're trying to raise money. Maybe they're trying to raise awareness, right? I know that the regulatory environments around the world range from highly regulated to, what's the new bill that passed? No regulations for 10 years or something like that.
yeah, correct. And
We
that was one of the ones I was wanting to talk to you about. That,
right.
and I don't, has that actually passed completely? I think it passed out of the
I,
House.
I think it did. I think it's separate from the other budget bill.
Yeah. And for those that aren't
Thankfully.
aware, that's a bill in the U.S. that
Mhm.
limits the amount of regulations that states can put on AI. And the idea from this is that uh, we need to be ahead in the arms race,
Right.
ultimately. And I'll probably surprise a lot of people and say that I'm not even completely against the idea, because I think putting the brakes on completely on this could be very dangerous. I think there's a happy median between
Right.
regulation and in free market at this point, and I can't tell you where that is right now. It's a moving target for me.
Well,
But
also too, right? Even if you put a ban on all of this, right?
yeah,
There's always a black market will always
yep,
appear, right? Like the whole idea that they were trying to block certain types of processors to going to certain countries, right?
yep,
And who's going to enforce that,
yeah,
right? Customs officials who are already trying to stop human trafficking and narcotics and all these other bad things. By the way, they don't have 100%
yeah,
success rate in stopping bad things that can be detected by dogs, right, or
yeah,
other types of sensors, right? You're not going to be able to determine one type of GPU from another. I don't think you could train a dog to do that, right? Like it just seems. I think some people have too much faith in regulations, um, and some people have not enough.
yeah,
To your point, the middle ground is probably the most sensible approach.
yeah. And I do think we'll see some form of super intelligence in the next couple of years, and at that
Mhm.
point, it's more the AI that's creating its own research.
Right,
And yeah, it may solve cancer, and that's great. I think the challenge is more at that breakout point that we were just talking about and what that looks like. It's
right.
still a very scary, scary scenario. It's one that we need to be talking about. And I encourage everyone to go check out the AI 2027 report. But the people who wrote it, it's a mix of people like ex OpenAI employees, some academics. Uh, I do think a lot of this is genuine, and a lot of them are positioning this as a worst case scenario to bring awareness as quickly as possible. I personally think 2027 is completely out of reach for something like this. As someone who's been in the industry now for a number of years, it just takes a lot of people and a lot of resources to make this move. And yes, it's moving faster, and I understand the snowball principle, but I really do think we're going to. It's more of a maybe a 2030 type of issue if we're looking at this from a doomsday perspective. I think they titled it 2027 because mathematically this is
Right.
the day that is possible to achieve this based off of the trends that we have seeing. But there's a
But
lot of, and I
but
want
that's
to,
also a lot easier for the
yeah,
average person to get their head around the date of
absolutely,
2027 than like 2030 something, right? Like, you see this in the quantum space, right, as well. Like, oh, you should upgrade your encryption algorithms because there'll be a quantum computer by 2040 whatever. Now that's also a moving date, right? But not to
yeah,
go down that rabbit hole, but you're right. Like, I mean, 2027 assumes the math checks out and everybody's rowing in the same direction.
yeah,
The math may check out. Math may be completely legitimate. I haven't read it. not knocking them, not not an endorsement, not a criticism. But the idea that you get a group of human beings to row in the same direction and work together, that is the most that's been unrealistic probably since
Yeah.
the pyramids were built, right? Like,
And one note too from the math perspective is that there are a strong group of academics who also believe that the math is wrong.
right,
It has been assuming that the increase for large language models specifically is exponential in how its growth is. We are already finding that that's kind of turning more logarithmic. It might be
right,
kind of tapering out. Now, obviously, there's always opportunity for new technologies to come in and bump that up. We saw that with things like mixture of experts and some of the things that came out. Like last year, everyone thought it was over. We'd reached the peak pinnacle
right.
of large language models. And then we were able to bump that up just a little bit more with some of that new research that came out with reinforcement learning and mixture of experts. But I don't necessarily see that always continuing to happen. And there could be a theoretical limit. There are mathematicians who believe there is absolutely a theoretical limit of the current algorithms and how they're built and how these large language models are built, that there there eventually becomes nothing new under the sun. And it would need new knowledge to actually start building out new knowledge. And this is a critical area that we're seeing, that this is assuming that this mathematical trend stays current, and most people believe it's going to look a little more bumpy. It's going to be kind of more like this probably in the end. But yeah, I think that's another critical one there.
Interesting. Where can folks find out about the report? Like, where just Google it or?
Yeah, just Google AI 2027. Let me get it right. It's AI-2027.com. It's a
Okay.
really well done report that has nice visuals. It tells you of like a lot of statistics. It's basically created like a story almost. Almost like a group of people like got together and started like a role-playing game of,
It's
of
like a
like AI.
tabletop war gaming scenario type
Yeah, and
thing.
there's like
Like,
stats on the side that are following along.
right.
But yeah, I would definitely suggest checking that out. And then we can do some follow-ups on the subject. But one area that I want to follow up on, I look forward to discussing with your audience about more, is the idea of AI sovereignty, and how do we solve some of these problems with AI sovereignty, and how does that fit from a technical side with some of the work that I'm doing at Red Hat and the open source community, and what we're trying to do to help uh, maybe not contain these national level models, but how do we contain it at a regional level, at an industry level? When we talk about your healthcare, your finances, and other things, how do we prevent the AI from breaking free at that level? And
Right.
that's a whole nother subject, which I think is really important. And I look forward to being back and we can talk more about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've been trying to schedule this for a while, but you've been traveling around the world, so
Yeah, and I'm home for a couple of months, and then I'll be
that's
traveling the world
awesome.
again. So we'll do a follow up, I think, before
Absolutely,
I
before too
head out
long.
again. Yeah.
But let us know in the comments and if you wear any particular aspect of it, because I think there's a lot to unpack here, right? There's obviously the
Yep.
pure research side of this, and then there's the actual how do you get it to run, right? And we both work on the same team in the same company, right? So like we do a lot of when Red Hat is really good at managing infrastructure and workloads, and that's really kind of like the not to make this commercial, but someone's going to have to make this work, right?
Yeah.
And right now, a lot of people put a lot of faith in the hyperscalers. Oh, don't worry, let them host it. But there's a lot of as you start pulling at the thread of that, there's a lot of you lose a lot of flexibility, control,
Absolutely.
privacy, sovereignty, right?
Yep.
At the cost of that. And I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that just having someone else do it, that may work for lawn care and
Yeah.
taking the trash out, but it may not work for things that are going to be critically important. And if reading between the lines of just kind of skimming this and the YouTube summary and that I watched, this is something that we're going to want to have a lot more control over
Absolutely.
than relying on it. Let's be real. There's only like 3, maybe 4 hyperscaler companies in the world. Like, this is not, it's going to turn into, like Game of Thrones, where you have, this house does this, like, and if you look at the life of the average person in the Game of Thrones universe, if you're not part of one of those big families, it's not really a great outcome for you, right? Regardless of who's in power and who's not.
Yeah.
And you need not look further than your local history book, right? So,
Yeah.
so you're like, hey, wait a minute, this is, to your point, like there's nothing new under the sun. Like, history repeats itself and it rhymes and all that stuff.
Cool. Yeah, and I think we can follow up on that on our next talk too. I think there's a lot of
Absolutely, man.
good
Let us
topics
know
there.
in the comments below wherever you're watching this. I see we have a chat message come in. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Robin. Awesome. And yep, exactly. Cool. Data privacy and sovereignty, especially with sensitive data sets. Yeah, exactly. This is how you're going to win, right? Like
Yep.
the idea of, and I think Robin said she also lives in Maryland, right? So Maryland has, not that far from DC, right? So you can think about not just government, but healthcare, finance, all these things that we assume are private. We really need to, I think, take control of the compute back into our own destiny, just as individual persons. I'm starting to move my own like file share stuff away from OneDrive, and onto my
Yeah.
own, my own little home lab, which is not nearly like that much,
Yeah.
But at least I'll see when the next electricity bill comes in. But on the plus side, most of it's in the basement, so it does heat up the basement in the winter. Not a
That's
good
nice.
thing in the summer.
No.
So we both have to run to 3:00 appointments. So thank you for joining us. Thanks, Christopher, for coming back, and look forward to the next time you're on the show.
Yeah. Looking
And with
forward to
that, I will play the fancy outro.
it.